Hi everybody, and today I'm gonna review a few of the next pages in the book Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Tuesday. The home Mrs. Bosch is most worried about is Mrs. Epstein's because she's got a bunch of athletes in her class, and one of the kids is Jess Range, who stayed back in 8th grade twice just so he could compete in field day one more time. But the team I'm most nervous about is Mr. Ray's class because that's the morning detention homeroom, and on field day I'm sure those guys are gonna play dirty. To make matters worse, I found out that we're gonna be competing with the grown-ups, and this thing the janitors went to the vice principal and said they wanted to put together their own team because they deserve a day off such as the students. I guess that's fair. But the bathrooms have been pretty gnarly ever since they've started spending all their time training. And now the lunch ladies are going to get in action. So the cafeteria has basically turned into a lunchroom. Gymnasium. The homeroom teachers are gonna get pretty spooked. So they've started trading kids to improve their team's chances. Mr. Esper sent the fastest girl in our school, Ava Hollis, to Mrs. Joy's class, and he got Thomas Schiff, who's apparently a specialist in sponge toss. All this trading has got Mr. Bosch thinking about making some moves of her own. So she even gave me a job of scouting kids from some of the other homerooms to see who we should recruit for our team. That's why I stung when Mr. Bosch traded me for two other kids, and two other kids for Jess Range, and threw in a pack of dry erase markers to close the deal. Thursday. Yesterday was field day at school. It started off with some controversy. Before the first bout, Mr. Ray gave Jess Range a detention, just so he could steal Jess for his team. So that meant Mr. Ray's team was totally stacked, and the rest of us didn't stand a chance. Before field day kicked off, Mrs. Epstein gathered our team to the playground to go over the strategy and make some last-minute adjustments. But I still couldn't figure out why she wanted me and the two other kids instead of Jess Range. I was only signed up for one event, the three-legged race. My partner was Madison Brooke, who was about a foot taller than me, which made things kind of awkward. When the race started, I finally understood Mrs. Epstein's strategy. She didn't trade me because I am fast. She traded for me because I am light. Me and Madison took first place, but our team was off to a good start. But we had a big setback after a few minutes later when Marcelo Romero rolled an ankle in the sack race. It turns out the lunch ladies had left some potatoes in a few of the sacks, but I bet that wasn't an accident. The fastest I've ever run was when I got chased by Roderick after I stepped in dog poop and laughed at him. I guarantee if someone had been timing me that day, I would have clocked cheetah speed. The only reason I didn't get in last place at the 50-yard dash because as soon as the race started, Jess Range fell flat on his face. But it turns out he got paid to take a dive. And no one would have found out if Vice Principal Roy hadn't caught him red-handed at the race accepting his payment behind the school. Just didn't want to get suspended. So he gave up to the kids who were on the betting scene. And those guys had a whole gambling operation running at the AV closet on the second floor. The rest of Mr. Ray's team was cheating too. But that didn't surprise anyone. Those kids had stored their water balloons in the cafeteria freezer. The only reason that they got caught is because George Rattleston knocked Mikey Ardala out cold with a bad throw and the balloon toss. Mrs. Bosch's team won a beanbag bingo, and that put them ahead in the standings for a while. But then Mr. Joe's team had a back-to-back victories in the water bucket relay and the sponge toss. So they took the lead. The janitor's team started moving up the rankings, and they would have probably taken the top spot if Mr. Washington's arms hadn't given out during the wheelbarrow race. The final event was the tug of war. And it came down to Mrs. Bosch's team versus the lunch ladies. I thought Mrs. Bosch's team were gonna win for sure, but the lunch ladies outlasted thanks to the solid job of anchoring Mrs. Frawley. When we got back to our classrooms after the competition, we were all bummed that the cafeteria ladies were the ones to win the day off from school. And we were nervous because we heard the janitors were going to have to fill in for them during lunch. I guess the school knew it was going to be dirty. So right after the last bell rang, Vice Principal Roy made an announcement that everybody would be getting a Friday off. I was excited to have a whole day where I didn't have to do anything and was looking forward to sleeping in. But as soon as Mom found out about my day off, she filled up with a bunch of appointments that she'd been wanting to schedule. I was in a bad mood all day, but Mom was really chatty. She wanted to know about field day and if I had fun. I told her the truth was that it totally stunk. Mom said the reason I never had a good experience with sports because I never have been a part of a team. I told her I was on a team for field day, but I have been on other sports with teams too. So I figured maybe she should block out those memories like I wish I could. Strike 32. Wah, thrap. Mom said that she's talking about being a part of a real team where everyone has your back. She said some of her happiest time as a kid is when she played sports in middle school. Go Huskies. That sounds a little corny to me, but I guess I don't really know grown-ups act when they're at work. At church, we had a lot of fun entertainments. First of all, when they introduced their priest and altar servers, they should dim the lights and play some loud music because that would get everyone hyped. And sometimes you need to break things up to keep people energized so they could put in a halftime show. And there's sports of crazy stuff you could do for entertainment. But the biggest upgrade to the church experience would be if they added a jumbotron. For starters, it will help people in the back feel like they were closer to the action. Plus, they could use the jumbotron to encourage people to be a little more generous when they pass the donation basket around. Tanner Smith, last week's donation, $200. I've got a bunch of other suggestions, but it actually took time to write them down. But I guess people who run the church must be pretty busy because so far nobody's gotten back to me. I was really hoping Mom would just forget about making me join a team, but she's been pressuring me every single day. I tried to tell her that in 20 years regular sports will be replaced by e-sports, and athletes won't even have to leave their couches to compete. But I guess she's too old to get excited to what things are gonna be like in the future. One of the reasons I haven't decided on the sport to play because I'm not really good at anything. I've been racking my brain trying to remember a time when I did something athletic to help figure out which sport is right for me. And all I can think is when the time I landed a balled up napkin in Justin White's empty milk glass. Some people were saying we should put up a plaque in the spot where I threw the napkin so the future students would know about it. From this spot, Greg Halfway tossed a napkin into a glass on a moving tray from the distance of 25 feet. I thought my napkin shot proved that I have some talent, but they told Mom maybe I'd try out for the basketball team. Well, that got her all excited because she played basketball when she was my age and her team was very good. She said maybe basketball skills run in our families. Mom said the matter was that I'd be a part of a team. And when she went to her computer to figure out how to sign me up to play, I was glad Mom was excited that I decided on a sport. But actually it was another reason I picked basketball. I heard some kids then talking about the tryouts at school today, and there were only 2 teams for my whole grade, with 10 players on each one, and if you don't make a team, you get cut. When I got to the gym for basketball tryouts, I counted 28 kids, and that meant 20 kids would make one of the 2 teams, and everyone else would get cut. So I liked my odds. Plus, most of the kids look way better than me. A lot of these guys have been playing since kindergarten, and they could dribble between their legs and do other crazy stuff with the balls. On the top of that, the school's only basketball was deflated. So the phys ed teacher couldn't find a needle that went with the pump, so she had to use balloons instead. Boop! There were a handful of kids at tryouts tonight who didn't look like they were good, which made me a little nervous. I was worried I would end up making one of the teams by accident, and I have to play the whole season. So I thought about doing badly on purpose, just in case. But my plan went out the window when Mom came to watch the tryouts. Hi, sweetie. Tryouts started at 7 p.m. and they handed each kid a practice jersey with the big number in the front and the back. And from the way from those things smelled, I guess they'd never been washed. They split us up to 4 groups and do drills in different areas of the gym. My group started up started off with dribbling. And I was having a little trouble with my hand-eye coordination thing, so I kept dribbling off my shoe. Oops, boink. I noticed that every time I messed up, some guy with a clipboard would write down my number. So I tried to stay behind with the guys with the clipboards, and the other kids who still started copying me. Every once in a while, I dribbled 5 or 6 times in a row, and of course, no one was watching then. But mom made sure to let those guys know on the clipboards that I was doing well. After we dribbled with the right hands for a few minutes, the guy in charge of our group said it was time to switch to our left hands. I thought he was joking, so I actually laughed. I guess some people do things with both hands, but not me. In fact, my left hand was practically useless. One time I sprained my right wrist and had to take a test at school using my left hand, and I think I would have done better if I held the pencil in my mouth. Once we finished our dribbling drills, we switched to free throws. I really wish I hadn't learned to shoot a basketball with a balloon, because I totally misjudged how much effort I need to take in with the shoot. I think Mom could see I wasn't doing so great. So whenever the emulators got near her, she snitched on the other kids who were struggling. Number 3 just threw it over the backboard. It's not like Mom was the only parent helping her own kid. Some of the emulators had kids who were trying out tonight. So we wonder how fair the scoring really was. By the end of the night, it was pretty obvious who was gonna make a team and who wasn't. But I guess they needed to decide which kid was gonna get the final spot, because they made the bottom 9 kids duke it in a scrimmage, and I can say that it wasn't pretty. When I got home from school today, my plan was to relax and maybe take a nap. So I was pretty surprised when I walked into the kitchen. Congrats, you did it. You did it. I was confused, but I knew for sure I didn't make either of the basketball teams. But Mom said I heard from one of the coaches that I did. She showed me an email to prove it as well. It was from Mr. Paddle, Pre Paddle's father. Pre was one of the best athletes in her grade. During the student-teacher basketball game last year, Pre totally dominated. So Mr. Paddle gave me a new team with Pre plus all the kids who got cut. So it's just so his son could play this season. Well, I wasn't happy to hear that. I had thought that we were off the hook with basketball, and now all of a sudden I was on an actual team, and I knew there was no way Mom was letting me out of this actually. Our first practice was tonight at the elementary school. When Mr. Paddle saw our team assembled, I'll bet he had second thoughts about taking this on. My teammates were the kids on the last scrimmage at the tryouts. I already know a few of them from school. Jerry Bruce and Tommy Chu were part of that trade deal with me on field day. And there were Darren and Marcus Woodley, who might actually be decent athletes if they weren't always trying to kill each other. Darren Woodley, Marcus Woodley. We also had Edward Mealy, who hasn't said a word since second grade, and Kevin Pomordo, who nobody can understand it when he's wearing his retainer. Edward Mealy / Kevin Pomordo. I guess I always want to have a little hate on your basketball team. So we're lucky to have Yusef Meskin. But Yusef like to scoop up kids who are my size and put them in the cave. It's also good to have a little toughness. And that's where Ruby Bird comes in. The reason she's on the boys' team because she's attacked one of girls' emulators for trying to write her number down. Anyway, I shouldn't have blamed Preet for his dad for walking his son so they could take a good look at us. But Mr. Paddle gathered the team around so he could give a speech. Mr. Paddle said we might not have the most talented team, but we are going to outwork everyone else in the Legio. And he said that we're gonna learn to play the right way, starting tonight. I figured out that if I was a guy who taught Preet how to play, maybe he could teach the rest of us too. Mr. Bradley explained that the two other teams booked the gym time for the season, so we were gonna have to make do with the leftovers. I didn't understand how we were gonna play basketball when we didn't have a hoop, but Mr. Paddle said we're gonna start with the fundamentals and work up shooting later on. We did some dribbling drills. I moved on to passing, but with the table set up in the cafeteria, there wasn't all a room around. To have us had to go onto the stage, which was set up for a kindergarten play. Even though we were trying our hardest, Mr. Paddle was getting frustrated and we weren't picking things up more quickly. So every time one of us made a mistake, he made us run wind sprints to the other side of the cafeteria. But that just made us tired, so we made even more mistakes. And after a while, everyone except Preet was running sprints. Personally, I don't think the coaches should use running as a punishment, because it does is make kids hate to run. I doubt that the track coach forces his team to play basketball whenever they are slacking. The thing I hate most is running, that it makes you sweat. My theory about sweat is that the body's way of telling that you're working too hard. And you need to take it easy. But when I shared my thoughts with Mr. Paddle, he just made me run more sprints. When I got in the car after practice, Mom wanted to hear all about it. I told her how our team was basically just Preet and a bunch of scrubs. So we weren't going to be any good for this season. But Mom said I'd probably get a lot of playing time on this team, which got me worried because every kid's dreams about hitting the big shot, winning the game for their team. And I am the person who blows it. There's a guy in my town named Anthony Crow, and 20 years ago he missed a kick on an empty net and lost the game against Slacksville. He was our town's biggest rivals. And now he can't go anywhere without people reminding him about it. If I was Anthony, I'll just move to Slacksville, because over there he's a hero. Mom said I actually did pretty well, but with the clock winding down, she got double teamed. So she had to heave the ball up at the buzzer, and the shot came up short. And Mom says that she's glad it happened because it taught her to deal with failure and make her a better person. Made her a better person. But I'm willing to bet Mom's teammates would just wish she hadn't choked. So that is the end from page 47 to page 106. And bye-bye.